Hey, need to build cabinet doors? Well, today I'm gonna show you how to build a beginner, intermediate, and a pro version of cabinet doors. Let's get started. For the first method, the DIY method, this will take the least amount of tools and the least amount of skill set, but you'll still need a miter saw, you'll still need a table saw, and you'll need a pocket hole jig. Oh, and maybe a brad nailer, that'll help a lot. But when it comes to skill set, it's relatively easy to follow. We're gonna use our 2.5 inch Select Pine. Why Select Pine? Because it's the cleanest, it paints a lot better. In terms of dimensions, it's up to whatever you're building for, but consider that the overlapping is depending on type of hinges you're using. I usually go with 1/2 inch, so it kind of does my math a little bit easier. These dimensions are 1/2 inch longer on each side or 1/2 inch wider than my cabinet base. I got everything lined up here. First thing we're gonna do is put some pocket holes. With our pocket holes created, we're gonna put some wood glue and secure them using pocket hole screws. For the backer, I'm using a 1/4 inch birch plywood. It's nice and soft, which will make painting it so much more flawless. We're gonna attach them using 3/4 inch brad nails, our brad nail gun, and a little bit of wood glue completely around. Now it's done, flip that over. Now we're gonna still dress this up so it's gonna look perfection. Now most cabinet doors have some kind of little subtle pattern that kind of creates that depth of feel. So I picked up these little rounded over cove trim pieces, very inexpensive, couple of bucks for a giant piece. And we're gonna line it all on the inside, brad nailing it on the inside so it goes into these stiles and rails. And of course, a little bit of wood glue to make sure they're nice and strong. Get a damp rag, not too wet, and then just kind of get all the little crevices. If you get it to it early enough, it'll all come off and it'll have a nice flawless look. And if you're staining them, you definitely want to get all the wood glue out because that's going to prevent the stain from actually penetrating the wood. Next, we're going to take a little bit of wood filler and fill in all the brad nail holes that we left, as well as any little imperfection that we might see in our joints. Next, we give it a light sand with 120 grit sandpaper. Look how beautiful that looks. They're not done yet. Our finishing touches is we have to set out the holes for our hinges. Now, you want to do this before you paint because you don't want to scratch them. So this is a little kit. They sell it together for like 20 bucks at the hardware store. This is going to lay out exactly where your hinges are going to go. We're just going to mark that there, load it up and drill. And just like that, we have our cabinet door, $35 in materials. If you're brand new to building, great place to start. Update those kitchen cabinet doors, upgrade the dresser maybe in your room, great place to start. This is the beginner, let's do the intermediate. So you wanna learn how to make intermediate style cabinet doors. You're upgrading for the beginner, perfect place to start. So there's a little bit of a calculation you have to do. It's nothing intimidating, it's very simple. You take your total width of your cabinet door, subtract the thickness of these stiles that are on the sides. And then after that, add 3/4 to the total dimension of this. Why 3/4? Because it's 3/8 here and 3/8 here. And what are these? These are gonna be tenons that we have to create. And for that, we'll need a table saw. All right, so at this point, we raise our blade up to 1/4 inch height. We have our little sled. You can make one, you can buy them. They're very easy to make. Add a little stop block there to have the most consistent cuts. Repeatability is the most important part right now. Start there, flip it over, continue it there, and then just clean up all the surface area here by just moving it back and forth. Gonna take a quick break and talk to the sponsors of today's video, Epson. Now you guys know the shop is my workspace, so I need to be entertained while I'm spending a lot of time in here. Well, that's where Epson business line of projectors comes in, specifically the EX9240. The perfect projector for both work and play. The EX9240 has amazing brightness, 4,500 lumens of color and brightness, ideal for displaying large group presentations,
spreadsheets, videos, even in a well-lit room. And with the projector being mounted in my workshop, I have a better idea of the direction we want to take a project. The EX9240 comes with 3-chip, 3 LCD technology, making it a beautiful display of imagery. Because it comes with a travel case and wireless connection, I can see myself using it not only in the garage here while I'm working, but also with family movie nights in the backyard. So click the link down in the description below and check out the business line projectors from Epson. Now, let's go back to building these cabinet doors.
Now that we got a tenon on both of our style pieces, we need to create a mortise, a channel for it to sit in on all 4 pieces around. This part is super easy. Don't make any adjustments on your table. Get rid of your sled. Move your fence over. Find the center, and you're gonna create a 1/4 inch wide gap that's 3/8 inches deep. So to do that, because your typical blade is roughly 1/8 of an inch wide, do the math. We just do 2 passes, a little bit wider than the last one, and we have a 1/4 inch. And now that we have our mortises and tenons, these just plug in perfectly. The backer, or in this situation, our panel, that's, I guess, the appropriate word. We're still using the 1/4 inch birch ply, but here's a little trick that will help you get the cleanest cut. This stuff tends to rip apart, specifically on the bottom part of your cut. But if you put a piece of tape over it and then make your cut over it, it's gonna have a crisp cut. Trust me, it's something I keep in my back pocket all the time when working with this stuff. We have our stiles, we have our rails, mortises and tenons in, we have our floating panel. Now, we're gonna glue up. When it comes to gluing up, if your floating panel is made out of solid wood, it will expand and contract as the seasons change. You don't wanna glue it down, let it do its thing. In this situation, we're using plywood, which is a relatively stable wood. We are going to glue that inside this little channel just to keep any kind of rattling and make it more solidified together as one giant door. When you're gluing these panels, be sure not to over tighten. That's a thing. And the reason why is we worked hard putting all the wood glue in there. By you over tightening, it's gonna squeeze it all out. You don't have as much glue holding it together. Doesn't make for a very strong door. It could dry in about 2 hours, but to be safe, let it dry overnight. They're gonna be so much stronger. I'll see you guys in the morning. Hey, welcome back to the next day. Cabinet door perfectly dry. Let's throw some, holes for the hinges. And there we go. We got a perfectly beautiful mortise and tenon classic cabinet door. $21.40 cost to make one door like this. Great option. In fact, fun fact, my first house, I redid all the cabinet doors that were oak in this style, and they held up really well. Now, let's do the pro version. So for the pro version, the math calculations are exactly the same as intermediate. Subtract the width of your stiles on the side, add 3/8 on each side, or 3/4 of an inch total, and you have all your measurements. We're not gonna use a table saw, we're only gonna use a miter saw, and now the best part, the router. With the pro method, that's my go-to method, not because I consider myself a pro, but because I already have a setup that makes it flawless every single time. I have my router, and the most important part here is you have to have a combination bit. You have a tenon and you have a mortise that creates. These are perfect Lego-like connections, like a puzzle piece. First one we're gonna do is the tenons. This bit is gonna do the work for us. We're done with our tenon router bit. Now we're gonna switch to the mortise router bit. Now that we got our mortise bit on, the most important part is to make sure you run everything the same way. So this is the back of the cabinet door, this is the front. Make sure you position it. All of them are gonna get a mortise right now. All right, this is why I love using the router table for stuff like that. I mean, look at that joint right there. I mean, everything is coming in there super tight, super perfect, and most importantly, super precise and consistent. Now let's give this cabinet door a proper floating center panel. The math calculations are the same as the tenons. Overlap it by 3/8 of an inch, give it 3/4 on each side, whatever you want to do, make it easier, and throw this on the router using the tenon router bit.
Right now, if we attach all together, there's gonna be one blank board, just because these are all perfectly gonna be the same plane. This is where a raised panel bit comes into play. It creates a little cove that creates this three-dimensional look, a very subtle, basically the same cabinets you see in brand new construction builds. This is what that creates. Look at that, nice subtle little cove right there. Let's assemble this. Now remember, with this one, this wood will expand and contract, hence the floating panel. So we're only gonna glue the mortise and tenons on the stiles and rails on the side, nothing in the middle. And just like that, we have our pro version of cabinet doors. They look flawless, especially with a nice little round over bit on the sides here. Guys, this is perfection. We're ready to upgrade our cabinets. And this was actually only $30.98 to build per door. And of course, you're probably wondering, I wonder what they look like when they're painted. Well, look at that. I'm gonna prime them, paint them, and give you guys a big reveal. All right guys, like promised, here's a big reveal. This is the beginner version. I gave it a quick coat of paint just to give you an example of what it might look like in your kitchen. Great option if you're okay with an unattractive backside of it. It's a very DIY quick application. Took me around 35 minutes to build one door. Not a lot of gluing and drying, very quick. We have our intermediate side here where it's the middle of both worlds. Got an attractive backside to it and a great looking front side, very light door. This takes a little bit more skill set, a little more time, a little bit over an hour. All of these are within about $5 of each other in terms of price. And then we have our pro version here, attractive backside, and even better front facing cabinet. It actually is a lot quicker. I got this done in about maybe 40 minutes, but it has less skill set you need, but you need a little bit more advanced tools like a router and router bits, stuff like that. I hope you guys found this helpful. If you like videos like this, here's another great video for you to check out.